Welcome to Teaching Truth. In his excellent book, Landmarks in the Law, the late Lord Denning, one of the most famous judges in British judicial history, wrote in relation to a case that he heard in 1977 these words: "To every subject in this land, no matter how powerful, I would use Thomas Fuller's words over 300 years ago. Be you never so high, the law is always above you." Be you never so high, the law is always above you. And the law is always above us. Not just the law that we have in our country, but the law that we have in the Word of God. Moses and the book has been the theme for our reflections this week, and in our reflections today, as we stand with Moses, as it were, on the top of Mount Sinai as he received those 10 commandments, we want to look at the commandments which were given in relation to respect that we should have for others and respect for property. Respect your father and mother. And that is vitally important today for those of us, yes, who've got aged parents, as well as those who are children and who have parents. We have an obligation to honour our father and mother, and I believe to even honour our grandparents also. The sixth commandment is respect for life. It says, "You shall not kill." Now, every one of us, I'm sure, would say, well, we haven't committed any murders. We wouldn't be here if we had. We'd be in some other place if they found out. But you see, all life is precious because it's made in the image of God. And when we talk about these things, we need to be careful by what we mean about "you shall not kill." I just need to mention wars, abortion, and I know there are sensitivities around these things, and we need to be respectful and careful. But people are killing themselves all the time with alcohol and with drugs and all sorts of things. But Jesus made it much more tricky and personal, didn't he? He said that if you look at someone in anger, that's just tantamount to doing the deed. How often we say looks could kill. How often do we cast our eye on another person, and because they've offended us in some way, we could gladly see them destroyed. The seventh commandment, "You shall not commit adultery," highlights the respect that must be given to marriage. And yet, as we look around today, we see that 1 in 3 or thereabouts, 1 in 3 marriages are ending in divorce. Biblically speaking, marriage is for life and not just for Christmas. When I, on June the 2nd, 2006, stood in Allender Evangelical Church and made vows, those vows were for life. Because I love my wife too much to betray her love and her trust in me. Now, that's not to say that we don't make mistakes. We are all human. Marriage was ordained by God for the well-being companionship of a man and woman. I read a lovely description of marriage the other week. Marriage is falling in love many times with the same person. You see, we're on very shaky and dangerous ground on the tectonic plates, as it were, of morality, if we take our morals from society or take them from friends, however well-intentioned they may be, or take them from the latest soap on television, we're to take them from the Word of God, from the 10 Commandments. We're to respect property. Every week we read of damage to property, of cars being stolen, of burglaries. We're to respect property. You shall not steal. Well, you don't steal. I mean, fiddling and pilfering, I mean, that's not really stealing. Well, it is. It is. You shall not steal. See, God here wants to safeguard the rights of ownership. And there are only two ways in which we can properly own things. One is that we work for them and buy them, and the other is that they're given freely to us as a gift. You see, the world's commandment is that you shouldn't be found out. The stigma is not so much the stealing as being caught. And the variety of ways of stealing today is endless. And let's just be honest about it. All of us are guilty of stealing from God. Stealing time that should be given to Him. Stealing gifts that should be used more for Him. Having gifts and time that He has given us and refusing to use them wisely. You see, none of us can duck the challenge of the 10 Commandments. God teaches us the way to walk and lets us know through the 10 Commandments what His will is all about. As Lord Denning famously said in his book, "Be you never so high, the law is always above you." The 10 Commandments are always above us. None of us can escape the challenge of the 10 Commandments. The Israelites, when with Moses they heard what God had said, through Moses said, "We will do everything the Lord has said." When they heard the word of God, they trembled and were afraid. In Ezra, we read that the people never moved as the word of God was read and taught for 6 hours. Oh, that we might learn to do the same. That we might have reverence for God. That we might have reverence for His person, reverence for His name, and reverence for His day. That we might have respect for others, respect for parents, respect for life, respect for marriage, respect for property, respect for truth, respect for authenticity, respect for personal integrity. Let's make sure with God's grace and God's enabling, and yes, we're all human and we do make mistakes, but let's make sure that with God's grace and enabling, that our behaviour matches our belief, so that we can hear God saying through His word and by His Spirit, "This is the way, walk ye in it." And if we do, we'll please Him and put a smile on God's face.